deal makers, deal breakers, and everything in between.
There was a 200-point list of the exact things she wanted. Very detailed sexual requests she had.
She tells him how she had gotten into a fist fight with this girl.
Fundamentally, I had signed up with the wrong partner. Deal breaker.
Deal breaker.
Deal breaker.
I hate that I hate it because hate takes energy, but I do hate it because it's taking my energy.
What secret do you have that makes you believe you're going to do this better than everyone else?
Welcome to Open Risk. I'm Arianna.
I'm Mike Jones.
And today we're talking about deal makers, deal breakers, and everything in between.
And both in business and relationships.
Yes. Since we started talking about even doing this podcast, I've been crowdsourcing information from friends.
And I've been drumming up stories from past business experiences. Mm-hmm. And just so we know, an ick and a deal breaker, same thing? Or an ick, but ick's kind of like not a full deal breaker, too many icks equals deal breaker.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So they're red flags.
Like a microaggression.
Got it. Okay.
Your yellow flags.
Sure, yellow flags.
Yellow to red.
And the deal
Yellow
breaker is the
red.
red. Okay, got it.
Not all icks are deal breakers, but some icks are.
Okay, that's fair.
Such as my good friend Parker.
Okay, Parker.
One of his icks is sharing soup.
Got it. Sounds very particular.
Very particular.
But I mean, kind of logical. Would he share a smoothie, you think? Is it a straw thing or a spoon thing, do you think?
I think it's a spoon thing.
Does he have a general germaphobe concern?
No.
Oh, okay.
He probably would share a smoothie. Basically, he was on a first date with this girl. He thought it was going well. He thought he could see, maybe going on another date with her.
Right.
The waiter comes and she's like, do you want to share soup? The soup in question, French onion.
Got it.
He was like, oh no.
Really?
And
that was the end?
That was the end.
Wow.
That was the end of the beginning, and he never went on another date with her.
I mean, that's pretty unique. To think that maybe he passed up on an actual love because of a soup share request feels a little aggressive. Maybe.
But then I had another friend.
Okay.
And he was telling me about a date he went on 2 years ago.
Okay.
With a girl. Same thing.
Okay.
Thought it was going well. Could see maybe asking her out again.
Right.
And then she tells him how she had gotten into a fist fight with this girl.
Okay.
And he was very turned off by this.
Do you think it was within like a recent time frame, or this was like I was back in school?
No, I think it was a recent time frame.
Okay. So she was violent.
Yes.
That's a solid red flag.
And he then made something up.
Right.
And called her an Uber.
That's fair. We have a friend in town, right, who told me that she went on a date with somebody and it was a really great date. And at the end of the day, she asked, can I get a ride home with you? And he was really hesitant. And then when she got in his car, she realized he was living in his car. Deal breaker.
Deal breaker.
Deal breaker. I was just in New York and I went out to dinner with a group of 4 friends. And this woman had been recently divorced. And we were asking, like, what are the credentials of the person you're looking for? And she pulled out her phone and she handed me the phone and there was a 200-point list of the exact things she wanted. And these ranged from like, he needs to be employed to like, he has to have an apartment of a certain size and scale. But it also went down to very detailed sexual requests she had on things that she absolutely had to see that were completely critical for her. He has to be able to do this to me. I want him to be able to do this. It was very specific, right? And we ended up in this really long debate of saying, look, isn't the list of that you want for somebody just like, I want to be madly in love with them? But these people that were very experienced daters says, no. You have to have a lot of very specific things to kind of manifest what you want. And in many cases, hers were both deal breakers and obviously green flags, like positive things, but it was very detailed list. Have you ever heard of this?
I've heard of a list, but not...
We're talking 200 points.
Not to that extent.
Well, so then the subsequent night, she was on a date. We met up with her and her date. And so we took her phone and then we started going through the list with the date.
And?
So he was actually a pretty good match. I can't imagine he covered 90% of her desires. But the fact that there was so many specific things, I thought it was pretty fascinating.
Okay, that's actually very interesting.
Yeah. But people do have these very particular icks, which are interesting, right? And like, it could be as specific as soup. But let's think of some of the other odd icks that we've had.
Okay, some of just the funny ones.
Yes.
I got one last night that was men that swim like doggy paddle.
Doggy paddle. They just can't fundamentally swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not great.
No.
Pets, there were a lot of particulars around pets.
Oh, yes. People with small dogs.
Right? We heard about somebody that would be like kind of FaceTiming their dog during the date, like kind of checking through tech on like the dog cam.
Someone that asked, like, I want you to have my babies on the first date.
Oh, that's right. Requesting pregnancy on the first date. Yeah, like, I love you so much on the first date. Will you build my child?
Call it a deal breaker.
That feels like a very aggressive deal breaker. A little fast.
Yeah.
A little quick.
A little fast.
We did hear about that. We heard a lot about the process of a meal, right? Like choosing the restaurant, sitting down, treating the wait staff in a kind or not kind way, what you order, what you don't order, sharing food. Like there was a lot of particulars for people having
picky eaters, unwillingness to try new foods.
Right. A lot of red flags for people around that. That's true. And a lot of feedback on if they didn't treat the wait staff well.
Huge.
Right.
That's a deal breaker for me.
Yes, I totally agree.
It's such a huge turnoff that I could really like the person.
Yeah.
But if I see that, it makes them ugly.
I agree. I have a very specific story around that. When I first moved to LA and I was kind of expanding a business I'd built during college, I took on a partner. And this partner had grown up in LA and he was like all wired up. He like knew everybody, knew all the fancy people. And I had just shown up kind of fresh off the boat. And he convinced me that we were going to be partners and do this stuff. So we entered into this partnership. And within the first few days, we went to this meeting. And when we were leaving the meeting, we had our ticket validated for our parking. It was in some skyscraper or whatever. And when we go check out of the garage, we realized we had parked in the wrong garage. Okay. So we had parked in one garage. We had a meeting in a different building. And so he hands the guy who's working this ticket booth our ticket, but it was validated for the wrong building, right? And so the ticket booth taker says, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't honor this validation. And you owe us whatever, $5. So this partner, this guy had just signed on to be partners with, decides he goes full rage on this guy and just demolishes this guy verbally about how he's an idiot and he can't believe this and this is their fault and they need to honor this. And it just becomes like a whole massive thing. And I realized as we're pulling out of this parking garage, I don't even remember if he talked his way out or whatever, that fundamentally I had signed up with the wrong partner.
So what did you do?
It's funny because we talk to people in relationships that say, no, I was dating a narcissist day one. I mean, I was contractually connected to this guy. I knew that he treated humans poorly. He'd only treated people well if they could really give him stuff. Anyone that was like beneath him in his mind, he treated really poorly. And we went on to have like a totally tumultuous, horrible 2 or 3 year partnership. He eventually bought me out of the business, which was great for me, but he was definitely at that point in his life, big deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
But I was unable to break the deal.
Yep. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because another deal breaker or ick that people have told me time and time again is entitlement or men who over-exaggerate wealth or business or success or whatnot.
Right.
Just this idea of people
showing their status.
Yeah, showing off.
Yeah.
Like weird brags.
Yeah, I hate that too.
I feel like it applies to both.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it happens to me all the time where I'm particularly bad at names and faces. So unless I've like served on a board with them or built a company with them, I do like 8 to 10 meetings a day, right? I meet a lot of people, but I'm really bad at remembering. And so I've been on these calls with the entrepreneurs and they're trying to convince that science might be interested in, funding their business or something. And they'll start running through this. Oh, do you know so-and-so? Do you know so-and-so? And one guy asked me 4 or 5 different people, which I didn't know any of these people. And I'm not even trying to like pretend. I'm like, no, I don't know that person. Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, I don't lie. I'm like, no, I don't know them. And then he's like, I can't believe you don't know these people. And I just got so pissed. And I'm like, look, man, you're asking me to fund your business and you're belittling me because you think I don't know this random set of people that you think I should know. It's the weirdest forced brag I've ever had in a meeting. And I got really pissed at this guy.
Yeah. My friend is dating a guy, always around kind of thing. And he would do the same thing that you just described. And I'm like, I don't know these people. I don't also give a shit.
Yeah, I don't care.
Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Maybe I know them. Maybe I don't. I'm good with names.
Yeah.
If their name's not ringing a bell off the top of my head,
yeah,
I probably don't.
No, it's an ick, yeah.
But why is it so important to you?
Yeah.
Does it make me less if I don't know them?
I totally agree. It's a weird show off. The other thing I find in conversation relative to this is basically these weird side quests people do in conversation. So they'll be like, I was building this company with this guy, Matt. Do you know Matt? I don't know Matt. And then they want to tell me like a 5-minute backstory on Matt that has nothing to do with the actual story. And I'm like, I not only don't know Matt, I don't think Matt's relevant to the story, and I don't need to hear anything about Matt. Have you had this where they like side quests in these like weird little conversational cul-de-sacs and they try to bring you back and I'm like, you just burnt like 5 minutes on something that's irrelevant to me?
I probably actually am a offender.
Oh,
in
shit.
This one, only because
no.
I'm super ADD and I feel like when I'm at dinner with my friends who are also super ADD,
yeah,
we're not actually ever gonna probably complete the circle of whatever the story at hand started as because
you side quest through all these like conversations.
Yes, but slightly different.
Well, yeah, I'm in like a half an hour structured
exactly,
meeting. Yeah.
Exactly. So ours are more of these like rolling conversations. Yeah. We're probably never gonna finish one story.
Yeah.
Because we just get on to another.
I was looking at this company. They were operating out of a warehouse in North Hollywood in LA. And the warehouse had no AC. So it was super hot, right? And I mean, like warm. And all these people were working. And they had the 2 partners. And one partner had this window-mounted AC unit blowing on his desk. Just to be clear, this is a big open office. The window-mounted AC unit was not in a window. Okay. It was sitting on a floor next to his desk, which means that it was simultaneously blowing cold air on the guy and injecting hot air into the room. And I'm like, you realize this AC unit is making the room hotter because it's creating more heat than cooling. And they're like, yeah, but if we don't keep, he's like one of the partners of the business. If we don't keep him cool, he gets really angry.
That guy's a dick.
What a dick, right? And I'm like, wait, he's making the entire experience worse for everyone else to maintain a temperature load for him and
was it
physics?
Successful?
No, it was terrible. And it was a broken partnership. But it just, again, it was like a person that just didn't fundamentally respect other people.
Yeah.
And they thought they were more important. Big ick.
Huge ick. Another one that's mine, I know it's yours, basically everyone I've talked to is being pessimistic versus being optimistic. So it's largely negative, largely positive.
Yes.
Huge.
Yeah, negative people, I can't. And especially in entrepreneurship, when the whole thing is about manifesting and dreams and positivity and creating something out of nothing, like you have to really take this like creation approach. And if you believe the world is fundamentally a negative place.
It also just pisses me off. It makes me angry because people who have this negative mindset aren't doing anything. They're the people that say, I can't.
Right. It's like complaining.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't deal with complaining.
I can't deal with complaining.
Yeah. Because complaining is really like, it's not taking responsibility for your actions or outcomes.
Exactly.
In many cases.
It's like, okay, you can complain.
Yes.
As long as you get it out there and then you do something about it.
Well, so you and I talked about this, which I think this is a big statement to people. At what point am I sharing something that's negative in my life, and how often am I sharing it before it's a complaint? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's 3 times. So the first time is like, hey, I'm having this really difficult situation. And then you are either empathetic and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Or you're like solving it. Like, have you tried? Right? Then the second time I'm like, I'm still in the situation. And you're like, okay. And then the third time you're like, you need to deal with the situation, right?
That, and the second time I will probably be like, okay, well, did you try X, Y, Z? And if they said yes, then I'll be like, okay.
Right.
Let's take a step back. Let's try A, B, C.
Right. So maybe the first one is empathy. The second is problem solving.
Well, I'll still provide, problem solving options for
number one. Okay.
But it's, if the second time they say, no, I actually didn't try that, then don't talk to me again.
Well, that's really sad. Yeah.
That I will provide the same solutions that I did the first time.
Right.
And then if you come back to me a third time, I have a good girlfriend who is dating this guy who I do not like. He is the same guy that's like, do you know Joe Schmo?
Oh, really? Okay,
and
got
I'm
it.
like, I don't. I don't give a shit. The sex is great. The sex is the best sex she's ever had. So she's staying with him.
Yeah.
He is an asshole to her. He is actually a narcissist for sure.
Right.
He is disrespectful. He fully mooches off of her, definitely is like using her. And I love her to death. I will always be an ear to her. Like I will always be that person that she can just dump it on.
Yeah.
But I also always provide solutions. And it has gotten to the point where I'm not a yeller. I will yell. We'll be on
at her.
I will yell at her.
Yep.
We will be on the phone and I will fully yell.
Does she recognize she's just staying with him for the great sex?
Yeah.
So she's just like, it's okay. I'll take this like terrible behavior because.
I hate that I hate it because hate takes energy, but I do hate it because it's taking my energy.
I get that.
Essentially, I'm providing her with these things. She is talking in circles.
Yeah.
And she knows that he treats her poorly. But I think she doesn't like confrontation. So when she does confront him, in the few times she has, it takes a while to get there. And he is so good at manipulating that then everything will be fine for a few days. Except for it's one of those like Candyland. You're fine for a few days and then you get to the next thing.
Or like Chutes and Ladders and you slide back down to the original behavior and you're like, oh my God, I'm back here. I get that. We see this in business too. There's definitely CEOs that I've come across that are terrible humans and they treat people terribly, but they make investors a lot of money. And I've seen investors been like, yeah, they're like very excusing of their behavior. They're like, yeah, we understand, but this person drives great returns and they leave like, whatever, they leave, burning bridges in their wake. But at the end of the day, they drive good returns. And so we'll kind of stomach it. This happens a lot of areas. Like when vaping first started, VCs like we're all pitched all these vaping oriented businesses. I don't want to like invest in businesses I can't essentially tell my kids about. Yeah. And I certainly don't want to spend time building CEOs up of people that I don't want to like spend time with. Right. So I'm kind of take that filter, but a lot of VCs in my peer group, invested really heavily and made a fortune through vaping. They may not talk about it. They may not tell their friends, but it's kind of one of those things like, can you excuse bad behavior? Can you excuse immoral investments if you consider that immoral in order to justify the means? So in this case, your friend's excusing bad behavior for great sex. In business, you might excuse bad behavior or bad, investment decisions for money.
Okay. Going back to business though, are there examples off the top of your head that basically, you have a CEO, he's burned a fuck ton of bridges.
Sure.
And he's still successful. He's still doing it. But now on the inverse, he was making a fuck ton of money.
Yeah.
And because he burned all of those bridges, he's out of it now. Or it actually negatively impacted the business at a certain point.
Definitely in both cases. But something came to light this week that was fascinating for me. There's an LA entrepreneur. I've known him for 15 plus years. He made an absolute fortune and he lived a big fortunate life. Like he lived big lives. It was Ferraris and mansions and stuff. But his business practices were always really questionable. Like the services were really aggressive on however he charged people, however he billed people. It was always like fringe, but he made a lot of money. And this week, the FTC came down on him and fined him into basically poverty. It was odd for me because for so long, everyone was like, oh my God, this guy. But if you looked at the practice, you'd always kind of feel in your stomach, you're like, it just feels like maybe that's wrong. And he fought this, I guess, for years and years. And I see his social media posts now and that he's like now kind of like humble pie, the whole story. But, it does come back on people, right? Now, that one was more of a bad business practice. I've definitely come across CEOs where when I've referenced them, people be like, yeah, I won't work with that person again. So it does come back, but it takes a long time, and there's a lot of investors and there's a lot of people. So in many cases, you can burn a lot of bridges and still find your way to success. Not everybody is, perfect on treating everybody well, but from a karmic perspective, it does come back.
I like to bank my karma.
Ooh.
I do this mostly in the car.
Okay. I like this.
So if I am, I do it everywhere, but I do it for the purpose of road rage.
Oh, okay. So like when you don't yell at somebody, you're like 2 points.
I'll help someone across the street. I'll do something nice. Okay. I bank the karma. Or if I'm driving and I'm not in a hurry, I will let someone I'm not going to do it all the time because that's also bitchy. What if someone behind me is in a hurry? Yeah. But I will let someone go in front of me if it's clear that they have been waiting for a minute. But I do this because if I'm in a rush, I don't necessarily have road rage. I'm more of the kind of person that's like, you asshole. And I say it exactly like that.
Sure.
Because then I make myself laugh.
Yeah. Got it.
But I can be a total bitch sometimes if I'm really in a hurry.
Sure.
And so I bank my karma for those moments.
I like that.
Of being a bitch.
It's funny. One of the principles I keep pushing out is this, that you get what you believe you deserve. And the key in there is your belief. And what I would argue is that you've created this belief system where you're like, if I don't do something mean, I'm building like this belief that I deserve good stuff in the future. So my little karma bank is your little belief mechanism that allows you to then to have great things in the future because you believe you deserve it. Because in theory, you sacrificed a negative moment, right? And a lot of times this constant belief does come with sacrifice. Maybe the sacrifice is I practice all the time. Maybe your sacrifice is I'm not doing certain things that I impulsively want to do. Maybe the sacrifice is I worked really hard, but then based on the sacrifices, on the other hand, you're like, now I have the stuff I deserve. And so that concept of like, I get what I believe I deserve is really important. Not that you get what you deserve, but you have to believe it.
I agree.
And so you've created a belief system.
Yeah, I agree.
It's cool. Super interesting. So on other interesting, weird red flags, in LA at one point, I walked into an office and the entire secretarial staff were definitely porn stars.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I need to know more.
I wish I could tell more plainly, but there's definitely moments where if I walk in and somebody's like, this is my secretary or my assistant, and this person's like clearly over whatever, and whatever, overly attractive, overly revealing, overly sexual in their mannerisms, you're just like, come on. Like, we're just walking, that for me, I'm just like, that just does not feel right.
Are you more likely to have a porn star for a secretary in LA than New York? Or
I mean, probably just because of the general sex media industry in LA, the answer is probably yes. And it's not to say that like people can't work in that industry or work in OnlyFans and still have secretarial jobs or assistant jobs or a professional job. It's more like how they're presenting themselves in the office that's the problem.
Yeah.
The fact that they might have extracurricular activities does not bother me, right? It's just if you're dressing that way in the office and the office is permitting people to dress in that level of revealing way, I would argue like there's secondary motivations here. Like it's not just like we're all doing a professional job.
Let's talk about clothes.
Clothes. Let's talk about clothes.
This is weirdly the only time I've gotten this ick from somebody else when I've been crowdsourcing. I can definitely think of people who this is probably an ick for as well.
Yeah.
But for him, it's a huge ick.
Who is this? Okay, well, don't tell us the name, but what is the ick for him?
Style.
Like he wants the women to have style?
Yes.
Like,
or just general, style.
So not like a t-shirt and pants, like something more.
Yes. And so I actually then asked another guy friend.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't give a shit.
Right.
Which I then found interesting because I'm leaning, I think, towards the style for sure.
Okay.
Because there was this guy who I went on one date with.
Yep.
And the only reason I said yes to the date in the first place is because he fully came up to me and got my number and was like, I want to take you on a date kind of thing. And I liked the initiative. I hated his outfit. We go on the date.
Yeah.
He is wearing a much better outfit.
Okay.
We had great chemistry in terms of conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't want to touch him or kiss him or literally anything.
You felt no attraction.
Yeah. Even at the end, I felt weird. I was like, do I even want to hug you? I don't know.
Okay.
So no attraction whatsoever.
Right.
And I think that's in part just because we didn't have that sort of, chemistry.
Sure.
But also probably in part because I was so turned off by his outfit the first time.
Oh, wow.
That I don't think I could unsee it.
Oh, that's fascinating. I can definitely understand that. I think in relationships and business is somewhat different. So in relationships, I think if you think about your life is in all these different settings. Like there's you going to coffee in the morning, there's you skiing, going out on the mountain, there's you going out for lunch, there's you going out for dinner, there's going out dancing. In a certain sense, you want a partner that can mimic your style. So if you're taking this partner to all these situations, you can dress them up and they all look the appropriate way. It's certainly concerning when you see somebody and you're like, I couldn't take you to these places because you just wouldn't fit in, or you see them multiple times and they don't have any change in style. And then you're like, which by the way is probably a problem for me because I wear the same clothes every day.
I wear the same clothes every day.
Right. I know but that probably is a problem. In business, it's funny because especially in startup land, you expect most people in like t-shirts and jeans, right? Like, you kind of expect it. A bigger trigger for me is like when people show up in a suit and a tie, I'm kind of like, what are you trying to prove? It's a negative impact for me. Because like if you grew up in like the tech entrepreneurship world, you're not wearing a suit and tie to a pitch meeting. You're just coming in, looking professional, looking fine, looking good hygiene, clean, presentable. But if you come in with like a guy came in once with like a big leather briefcase and like a suit and like patent leather loafers. And I was like, am I buying insurance today? Like, are you my new stockbroker or something? Like, who are you? Like, why are you here? And they're presenting me a business. But for me, it was immediately like, how are you going to attract a young dynamic staff to build this company if this is how you're presenting yourself? Like, because at the end of the day, companies are effectively teams, right? And you have to attract great talent and team. And if you're that leader and you're presenting a certain image and I don't think you can attract that team, then it doesn't matter how good the concept is. I think you're probably not going to work out. So at least in startup land, I think it's the opposite versus if I went to like New York and we were pitching to become a banker or something, we were a very particular look and feel, right?
If someone shows up looking homeless, but they're wearing like Gucci shoes.
Right.
But you only know they're Gucci shoes because maybe you were looking at you were eyeing the Gucci shoes. There are no logos on them.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like we've been in this style moment for a while where it's like homeless or rich, right? Where are we? Because like when COVID hit, and including myself, everyone's growing out all these beards, and suddenly you're like, oh, guy from Malibu that looks like a homeless guy, but he actually like lives on the beach. We saw a lot of that. So right now, it's hard for me to judge that, but I was on a call yesterday where we're putting together this big investor event, and one of our CEOs who has a really great, fast-growing company, every time we get on a Zoom with him, I'm like, have you brushed your hair? Like you honestly, you look like a fucking mess. And I love this kid. And I was with my team and I'm like, yo, you got to like clean him up. Like we're going to put him on stage with a bunch of investors. Make sure he's like dressed and looks right. Like someone have a conversation with this kid just to like clean him up. But generally I'm pretty accepting, right? Like it's different if we're going to go present at a banking conference or something. I think people need to be authentic to who they are for sure. But there is an audience you have to like, keep in mind. I have the same problem. I'll go to like England and someone will invite me to some private club and I don't wear anything but tennis shoes. Let's just be honest, and jeans essentially. And I've been a speaker at a private club where they rejected me. They're like, you can't come in. And I'm like, no, I am your speaker today. And they're like, yeah, you're wearing jeans and you have tennis shoes on. You're not allowed in this club. There's a store down the street. Like go buy some crap. And so at one event, two of us were speaking. We both were rejected. I took the guy there. I bought us both outfits, within like minutes to like be able to go and make our speaking event. So we came in with like whatever, probably oversized trousers or something and some patent leather shoes to be like, okay, I guess we can walk into your like old white person's club now. This is true, like old world, but California, you just don't hit as much, right? West Coast, like a lot less.
Yeah. I hate men in basketball shorts that touch your knee.
Oh, you don't like long basketball shorts?
Hate them.
Yeah, it's a very particular look.
Hate them.
Well, visually, it also makes them look short, I think.
And it's just, ew.
Yeah, I get that. I can get that.
Yeah.
Sweatpants?
I like sweatpants.
Okay, so your guys with sweatpants are okay.
Yeah, but they can't be Nike sweatpants. They have to be...
They have to be some off-brand.
Yeah.
Some unique
Aloe
brand.
Is fine.
That's Aloe's fine. That's fine. One that you and I talked about was sometimes startups pitch me and they can't get to the point. It's like, we'll sit down. My meetings are typically half an hour. And I'm like, let's just get quick. And typically the warm-up that are red flags for me is first, they're like, we need to sign an NDA. And I'm like, you know what? That's just never going to happen. Like, I don't know you. I'm not signing an NDA to hear your story. Then they'll be like, we want to walk you through the deck in person. I'm like, you know what? That's a huge waste of time. Like, I can read a PowerPoint deck on my own. Then I can come to the meeting prepared, send me the deck. Then we hit this point with startups sometimes they're like, well, we can't really articulate the story in the deck. And I'm like, then you're definitely not ready to meet with me because I'm not here to figure out your story. I might be here to figure out your path to your goal, but I'm not here to like decipher your goal. So then they send me the deck. Then I'm like, okay, I understand what we're talking about. And now we'll sit down. But then we sit down. Sometimes they're like 15 minutes of like their ancestral background of how they came to this point in their life. Like, we got a half an hour. I got a lot of knowledge I'm happy to share with you. Let's get to the point. What are you selling? What are we building? Where are you at? How big are you? Whatever. And at this point, I just clear interrupt people. I'm like, stop. Let me ask questions. Let me guide you. Because right now, the tour you're taking me on of like Machu Picchu for 45 minutes of like your life journey, and that's not going to help you.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not necessarily an ick, but it's more of like, let's dance more.
I think it's interesting because how that relates to dating. So on one hand, I want to go in with a lack of information because if I have Googled the person or looked them up, I am far less likely to ask questions that I normally would have asked because I just don't want to be reiterative.
Yeah.
and,
I get that.
and I will forget that I didn't learn the information from the person.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a big divide there in terms of
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do a
dating.
lot of research before they sit down with anyone new.
Is there such a thing as too much research?
Your nice approach is that you're not hearing somebody else's articulation of this person. You're hearing it from them, which means you're probably getting a much more true sense of who they are, which is probably nice and more original. I think that there is the idea of too much.
In business, though?
I think so, too, because any predominant person that's done a bunch of stuff in their career, there's going to be a bunch of things on them online, true or untrue. I want general context coming in so I can shorten the amount of time before we're actually talking about like substance. But to your point, I don't want to go down huge rabbit holes. Like, I don't want to watch 3 hours of interviews of somebody before I meet with them, you know, but I'm happy to read a summary and understand generally where they're coming from and kind of how we're going to approach that meeting.
How does that make you feel if someone like sits down and they're like, okay, so I know you did this, and this.
Right.
I want help with this versus I know you did this, and this. Like, can you tell me more about that?
I love it when people are like, I'm looking for help with this.
Okay.
Because then I'm like, great. Now we have a goal. Like, let's engage. Can I help you? I want to help you. Let's do this. It's a little bit harder for me when people are like, hey, can you tell me the story of X? And I'm like, yeah, I can. But just to be clear, there's like hundreds of videos of me telling the story of X. But yeah, if that's how you want to use this half an hour time we have together, then I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Right. But I would argue that in many cases, when I sit across from somebody in a social setting or in a business setting, I think we're in a moment of discovering secrets. Right. And I think the secrets that you're looking for is like, if you're pitching me business, I want to understand your core motivation of why this idea, why you, what brought you to this point? Why did you decide to dedicate your life to this exact moment? And what secret do you have that makes you believe you're going to do this better than everyone else? Right. And on the counterbalance, people, when they sit with me, what they want to find is the secrets I have that would make them more successful. It could be somebody I know. It could be a practice I believe in. It could be some sort of tactic that I've learned. But their goal should be like, hey, I want to be successful. Mike, you have special secrets. Let me find those secrets inside you to make me more successful. I think that's the trade, right? And I'm totally comfortable with that trade, right? I love that trade. But I think that's also true when you sit with somebody socially. Who are you? How did you get this way? What's your real core motivators? And so when I would sit with somebody new in a social setting, my goal is to figure that out really quickly. I don't want to talk about the fucking weather and like a sports team. Like, it's just so boring. I'm like, let's understand who you are and how you became this way. What can I contribute to that? And what can I learn from your experience? Like, those are the core. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. One big ick that I have that other people have also said they have is if you're on a date, or honestly, if you're just meet someone random, it doesn't really matter if you're on a date or not. And that person can't stop talking, doesn't ask you questions, won't even honestly let you speak.
Right.
Those people, I feel like, predominantly have that negative energy that I don't really want.
Right.
There's no fun in that.
Agreed.
How do you learn?
You don't learn about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need a good mutual exchange.
Yeah.
I've definitely been on, social experiences where people are like, hey, Mike, I've told you more in the last 45 minutes than I've talked to my best friend for the last 2 months or something. I like those really in-depth conversations. Those are super interesting conversations. But I agree, sometimes I feel like I sit down with somebody and it's like some like toy where like we pull the string on the back of the teddy bear and we let it go and they just start a script. And like they're just going. It's like a 30-minute script that they're just rolling through. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like so boring.
That, and the difference though between that and the 45-minute one you just said is former was probably prompted by a question you asked for a specific reason.
Like real questions.
Exactly.
Which is so much more interesting.
And you're also probably asking questions throughout.
Yeah.
And, uncovering more secrets and that kind of thing.
I'll tell you, one of the hardest questions that I can't figure out how to solve as a venture capitalist is this belief question. So here's the construct. If you're going to start a company and I'm betting capital and a lot of my time on you to become extremely successful, like I'm believing you're a future billionaire, right? And I want to attach my ticket to you, right? That's essentially what we're doing, right? And I'm going to give you my knowledge and my time and capital that I manage, my team, etc., in order to make you successful. What I can't tell within any number of meetings is whether you believe you deserve that level of success. So the question I used to ask people is, hey, you're 10 years old, and I'm just going to use soccer, for example. You're on the soccer field and you're with your team and it's like, 30 seconds left in the game. You've got the ball. You're dribbling towards that goal and you strike, like you hit that ball and you're going to go score the winning point for your team. Did that ball just go in the goal? And there's a lot of people that when I press them on that concept, I can see in their eyes, they missed the shot, which in my mind tells me that internally, they still don't believe they're a winner. And to back somebody that at their core doesn't believe they deserve to win is probably just a setup for them losing 5 years from now.
How do you think that applies to teamwork?
Teamwork?
When you said that,
yeah,
my mind, I used to run cross country.
Yeah.
I'd been running since the age of 10.
Yeah.
I ran in college for half a year. I quit in college after I was recruited for cross country. And I quit come January because even though it seems like an individual sport, it is very much a team sport.
Okay.
I didn't dislike necessarily my teammates. We weren't friends.
Yeah.
And we didn't have those things in common. And so it was really so far less a team than it had been for me in high school.
Okay.
Where even though we all had our like catty things as any kind of team does, I went to boarding school too.
Sure.
Close quarters.
Yeah.
We all loved each other.
Yeah.
And we were a team.
Yeah.
And so I quit because I didn't like the team and I felt far less motivated to do it.
Sure. That makes sense.
I didn't want to anymore.
Yeah. You weren't aligned with the team. Yeah.
So when you said that example, my mind went to teamwork.
It's a good question. My immediate response is that you probably have a bad coach because the coach's job would be to align that team together. But you brought up another idea. So I was sitting down with a coach that was coaching one of the U.S. Olympic teams. And I asked him the same question. I said, hey, if you have a new athlete on your team and at the end of the day, they don't believe they deserve to win, what do you do to change their mindset? And his statement is he surrounds them with other people that are just like them, that are super winners. It's that concept of like, you're the average of your friends. And so if he surrounds your not ready to win position with all these people that fundamentally believe they can win and have won, then suddenly that lifts their mindset. Exactly. And that'd be a good coach move. So it sounds like not only did you not get along with your team members, but you also didn't believe you were in a fundamentally winning team. And then the coach obviously didn't solve that problem for you.
Exactly. It was a team dynamic that was different than the one I had been on previously, which was a fantastic dynamic. Yeah. And it's interesting because while in individual sport, it's still a team sport because you have to be surrounded by people who have this same mentality, who are able to run fast at a long distance for a decent amount of time.
That's right. I totally agree. This fundamental belief in winning, and you have to choose it every day. Yes, I'm sure there's people that just fundamentally believe they're going to win every single day. It's also the reason why often I find that successful people continue to be successful because once you've been successful a few times, you just fundamentally believe you deserve success. It's also the reason why rich kids stay rich. Because if you grow up in a wealthy family and you just expect that you're going to live in a world of wealth, then when you enter the world, you just expect that that world's going to provide you with a world of wealth because you believe you deserve it, because that's how you grew up, and thus you kind of manifest that into your life. So, but people do have to choose that mentality to win every day. Like certainly on Monday, you could feel like I'm a complete winner, and on Wednesday you could be like, oh my God, I'm a complete loser, right? So it's going to oscillate for sure. It's not like I'm only backing people that fundamentally think they can win forever. It's like no one's that perfect, right?
Yeah. But it's all about mindset. It's all about positivity, negativity.
Yes.
It's a weird example, but if I don't feel good, like maybe I'm sick, maybe I'm hungover, doesn't really matter.
Sure.
If I don't feel good, and if I feel fine enough, though, to leave the house, I will purposefully make myself look really good. Because this mentality, like, if I don't feel good, I'm at least going to look good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just going to feel even worse.
That's cool. I like that. It reminds me of two things. One is this athlete mindset of like, you have to win at everything you do. You wake up on time, you brush your teeth on time, you get dressed the same way. But you're basically saying like, look, even if 2 or 3 things in the morning I feel bad about, I'm going to feel great about this one. And it's your first win of the day. You're like, I look ridiculous. I may not feel great inside, but I look ridiculous as my first win. And then it sets you up for more wins.
Exactly.
And I like that a lot.
And it's like, it's this glass half full.
Yeah, probably an under-recognized benefit of taking, your beauty into consideration. Yeah. Like that's super interesting.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about open-mindedness.
Okay.
Because I think it goes with like judgment.
Yes.
People who are too judgmental,
Yes.
big turnoff.
Yes.
To the extent that they cannot change their mindset or are not willing to change their mindset.
True.
Or are not willing to try
Try new
see
things.
something from a different point of view.
Agreed. It's kind of like saying there's you knowing what you like because you want people that know what they like, but you want them also open to try new things, even if they don't think they're going to like them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a closed mindset is like terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It goes to certain statements. Like when people say, I could never do that. I can't do that. That's not the way it works. Mm-hmm. It's just such a triggering moment for me. I'm like, are you sure? Mm-hmm. I bet I could find a way to make that work. I bet we could do that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's when people have that closed mindset, oh, I would never do that. I could never. That's no, that'll never work. You know, I'm like, no.
Also, if you surround yourself with people like that, it rubs off on you.
I agree. You fundamentally believe that. It's funny because there's two friends of mine. One fundamentally believes everything works out and everything does work out for her in the weirdest way. It's like, she's not worried about time. She's not worried about this, but she goes through her life and everything kind of always works out. And her best friend is somebody that basically thinks you have to work really hard. You have to like really grind for stuff to work out. And they clash all the time because the negative person is basically like, how is this all working out for you? This is crazy. And the positive person's like, I just have a positive mindset. It's all going to work out. The universe will just provide for me. It's all super good. But this other person doesn't fundamentally believe it. And they're constantly in awe the fact that it does work out for this other person, right? And so I'm seeing these two parallels. One, like this hardcore grind, I don't deserve success. Success comes with time and hard work and sacrifice. The other person like, the universe is going to provide for me. It's going to be amazing. You know, they're both becoming successful, but I would argue one's much happier.
Yeah.
We're so far away from Icks at this point, but I think on this mindset concept, it's like, yeah, it goes down to your belief. Like, do you believe the world's going to provide and do great things for you or not? And it's a big question for people. If we had other weird icks that we just want to quickly roll.
I know, that's what I was thinking.
Baby talk. People were like hated baby talk.
Yeah, ew.
It's not good.
It's not good.
Girls with fake voices for me, I just can't.
Mm-hmm. Valley girl voice. I got that ick from multiple guys.
Yeah.
Valley girl voice.
We heard a lot about lack of ambition.
Yes, a lot about.
That was a trigger. And that's a trigger in business too.
Oh, I mean, being on your phone?
During an intimate date or a private moment or a social moment. Yeah, that's attention. That's disgusting for sure.
Oh, not liking animals?
I agree. Animals are pretty important.
Well, if you don't like animals, you're probably a sociopath.
Probably.
At the very least.
See, how can you not love animals? Like, you have to love animals. I totally agree.
Mansplaining?
Yeah, that's gross. I agree. And that happens in business too. Mm-hmm. People mansplain business to me too. That's pretty funny. Everyone has their personal things. People have these little triggers. And I think what we also found was there's people that are highly compatible, that are open to a lot of things. And there's people that have really low levels of compatibility and they have really long lists of those icks, right? And that's why I go back to this woman with this 200-point list where I was like, that's a real narrow window, you know, for you to find like your perfect match if that's what you're looking for, because that's a long list of things that they have to fit on. Exploration is so important. Yeah. Because if you don't explore and you don't have experiences, how are you going to know you don't like something? Totally agree. Yeah, I always love the thesis that knowing what you don't like is equally, if not greater important than knowing what you like. I think it's greater. I love that. I fully think it's greater. I'm a big believer in that. Yeah. Cool. This is amazing. Well, cheers. Cheers to another great podcast. I think this is our best yet.